I, above all other things, am a builder. I love building in Rec Room. It is my favorite thing to do, and it's the thing I like to push on all new people that come to the game. It is an equal opportunity for all people. It is very easy to get into, and it's not that overwhelming once you understand the basic tools and functions that you need to create the rooms that you'd like to. So I would like to make a quick video on how to use the tools, how to make use of those tools, and some little tips and tricks and stuff like that, so I can lead into a building series using those tools. So let's get over here to my little side area, and we'll start with some basics. Okay, welcome to the tools page. This is where you're going to be using everything to create, move, to rotate. Everything that you're going to be making will come from this page. Very important page. Let's get through all the tools, show you some little things you should turn on and off in my settings, and explain what some of the more important things do. So before anything, the create tool. The create tool will help you create things and bring things into existence that did not exist beforehand. So this is very important for creating the world around you, the things that you're going to be making, all your shapes, all your props, any weapons, anything like that. This will all come from this tool. Next tool is the select tool. The select tool allows you to select and apply certain properties and things to things that are already been created. So it allows you to select a certain amount of items and then move only those items, and choose different settings for certain items that you select. The connect tool is only going to be used for circuits for the most part, and you will not use it if you are just using regular buildings. But when we get into things like using animations for doors, it is important to know, and we will get into the most basic of circuits in the series later on. The configure tool will be to change some properties of already made items that will make them do different things, so have different attributes, and we can apply tags, which is very, very later, but is another important thing to note. I will be skipping the transform tool because it kind of ties in with these three, and I'd like you to understand what these three do first. The move tool applies an axis to an item or anything that you select that will allow you to move up, down, left, and right, back and forth, and move on all the axes. Very important. You will use that a lot. Rotate, just how it sounds. Select an item, and you will allow to rotate in place or rotate around a pivot. I do not like the pivot. I will explain what both are, and you can choose your own way. The scale tool allows you to take items and create bigger versions of them by scaling them up, changing their sizes. And the transform tool is a combination of them all. It's just the exact same thing as selecting one of them and then clicking on an item. It will just show all three, the move, the rotate, and scale tool. It is a lot newer, and I don't like it. It's because I'm old and stubborn. I don't want to learn anything new, but if you would like to use the transform tool, that is all on you, but I highly recommend you use move, rotate, and scale if you're having a hard time keeping up with my tutorials. I will be showing the difference between the transform and the move, rotate, and scale tools. So if you see right here, when I press this to move it, you'll see the left, right. This will let you, this blue arrow will let you go back and forth. Red arrow, front and back. Green is up and down. You have to hold these all in. And of course, you can just grab it and move it around how you want to. But the transform tool is this funny thing right here. It looks a little scary, I know. Blue circle allows you to rotate it this way. This will allow you to rotate it this way. This one is rotating it in place. And you'll also have all your things like your scale tool and your move tool. So it's all in one place, and I do not like it at all. There are a lot of people that can use transform and are really good with it, and that's really cool. It's really nice for you to be able to create things and do that in all one simple place. I cannot stand it. It's just not how my brain works, and I recommend if you are following my tutorials that if you are creating with transform and you would like to stop, that you do that. Do whatever makes you feel the most comfortable and allows you to build at your greatest. It is important that if you want to learn transform, do it. You don't have to learn how I'm doing it because that's how I'm doing it. Learn at your own pace. Everything that I do can be applied with transform. I just don't like it. Cool? Cool. The clone and flip tool allows you to take items that are already created and clone them or mirror them respectively using different functions. I'll get into that in a little bit. The recolor tool. allows you to recolor certain items and different things that have already been created in the world. This will be through the swatches menu on the right. I will explain what this does in a little bit. The freeze tool allows you to freeze items that you've created and make them unable to be edited, touched, grabbed, anything like that. Make invention we will not really be getting into, but it brings up a little menu that allows you to select things that you've made and make them into inventions you can sell or share with your friends. The manipulate tool allows you to manipulate things like the tubes, and allows you to manipulate shapes and things that you draw with the maker pen. You have different attributes and different sizes. It's basically a scale tool, but much more customizable and a lot better. And the delete tool allows you to create, no, not create, actually anti-create. It allows you to get rid of things like happy little accidents that you might make while you're building. Okay, so all of these have their own settings. On the right you can see, and we will not really be getting into a lot of them, but I will get into some key ones real quick. The create tool settings are the things you're probably going to be using the most, and are the most important things when you are making buildings to edit and change to your liking. I will recommend you keep grabbable objects on object default. Don't ever have them on. Off is also possible, but I would just have object default because the things that you make by default will be, creating things with tubes or with the maker pen with all the shapes and everything like that. Those will object default to not being able to be grabbed, so you will not mess up any of your builds, and it'll make things like the rocket launchers, the guns, anything like that, it'll make those grabbable. Whereas if you turn all of them off, it'll make some things a little bit more inconvenient for you. I just keep everything on object default. Uniform shapes you can have on or off. I recommend to have it on, and then you can just use manipulate tool to change some of the things that you would like to make. Uniform shapes, basically, I'll put a little demonstration on the thing up here. Uniform shapes will make it so it'll create exactly what you draw in place, or it'll create a perfect version of the shape that you were making, and then you can later edit it. I recommend the latter. You're going to see snapping settings right here. Position snap is the position in which things move when you try to move them. I'll get into that a little bit more because it is really important with the manipulate tool, the settings you use, and when you use them, I will show you how to apply them later. Rotation snap are the different rotation degrees that you will use when you are rotating things. I would recommend you keep it on 90 by default, but there are a lot of different situations you will use the lower degrees. On here, two-stroke grid, that is your personal preference. I like to have it on for measuring purposes. Circuits and debugging, you probably don't need to touch this for a little bit, not very important. A lot of these things in general settings, there are some. You can have show pivot on if you'd like to. I just have it on because it's nice to know where the pivot is, and if I need to change it, if I am using the pivot, which I don't use, so I would not need this on right now. Show all components, if you would like to have show all components on, go for it, but that will happen anyway when you have the maker pen in your hand. But right now, you do not need to have this on unless that is your choice. Show selection bounds. Once again, if you'd like to have this on, go for it. If not, don't. Selection bounds are nice to know because if you are creating things and need to merge things together, you'll already know what you selected. Very nice. Autofocus search. All this is all preference. Now for the part of my show where I do a hands-on demonstration with all the things and all the tools and what they all do and how they can be applied right now. So, before anything, we're just gonna go left to right, so I will tell you what the tools are, and I'll have a little thing at the top that'll tell you what each tool is that I'm using right now. The create tool allows you to, by using the palette, create different shapes, different tubes, and ribbons, and all these different things, and if you go to props, you can also create things like guns, and all the fun things. Basically, the create tool is your function to bring things that are not in existence into existence with the maker pen. The next thing we'll be using is the select tool. The select tool is very important. It allows you to edit and move things by selection in the name, by which you click on them. So if I click on them, you see this little selection bound right here, and that means these two are selected, and I can move them, edit them, change them, and with a little options menu, and change some of their properties, make inventions, everything like that, copy, whatever. That's cool. So, Next thing will be the connect tool. Connect tool is what you'll use for circuits. I'm not really going to get into circuits right now, but it is what you use to wire circuits together, circuits V1 and V2. You will not be using that for right now, at least with my tutorials, but if you would like to go to other tutorials, they will probably go more in depth with that. I will get to it. It will just be a little bit later. The configure tool allows you to change settings on things that are already made. So for our purposes here, I will be using this cube. I will configure the cube, and I'll actually show you my watch screen update. So when I do this, you'll see a bunch of different sizes and stuff because I haven't dropped my makerpen and finished editing. You can change the size of the texture, you can change the density of the item, all those different things like that. We will not be getting into this as of right now, but this is very important, the configure tool, because when I'm done editing, you can get an entirely different menu. This menu is very, very, very important and allow you to change a lot of the different structures and things, and I will get into the physics mode and the things these do right now. The environment mode is the thing that you will probably be using for your floors and for your dirt floors or forest floors for trees and certain things like that. Things you want to have as a ground that you cannot move through, and it is very important you use environment, because if we change it to decorational, you'll see very quickly that I can't stand on it. That means decorational is not having a hitbox, I cannot place things on it, and everything just completely goes through it, but it will stay in place. That is what decorational does. If I change it to physical, it now has the physics of, like my pen here. So if I throw things at it, nothing really happens, but if I push it, you'll see it has actual physics. So it will now move around, fly away, all those different things. And if you allow it via configure tool, I will get into this a little bit later, you can change it to be grabbable, so you can pick it up. This is the same thing for environment cubes and decorational cubes, but it is applied a little bit better on the physics or on the physical cubes because you can throw it. All those fun things like that. And the last one, this is the one you're probably not going to use very much, but it is just like the physical tool, except it is sticky, so you can stick it to walls. So that is what those do, and that is what you can change with the configure tool. We have already gotten into the transform, move, rotate, and scale and what they all do, but this is a little recap. Move allows you to change things on the different axes and move things accordingly. The rotate tool allows you to rotate things on either the axis or in place, like I have it. You have the scale tool, allows you to make things bigger or smaller. The clone and flip tool allows you to clone things and make things in different directions. It also allows you to, with the outside arrow right here, you can see that there's a little outside little line and two arrows going in. You can also mirror items that you create. So, as a little demonstration, say I have this one, it's all one item, so if I mirror it, you will now have one on either side. It is a very useful tool, you will use it a lot. Okay, we will now get to the recolor tool. Now these will all be with the regular swatches, and I'm not really going to go into swatches, but you can see when you go to recolor, you'll see color, material, and pick from all these different materials and things. You can change the material size, and you can use the color palette, all those things like that. So just for our purposes, we're going to use color, and we're going to use a nice painted brick. And if you see on this size thing here, the smaller the size, the more condensed the texture will become, all to the way to the point that you can see so many individual bricks right here, but if you make it much bigger at 5,000, you can barely even see the texture that is on it. It just looks like a gray block. So that is very important for when you are making different textures and when you're building. A good way to explain what this block does is if I make it physical, and the freeze tool will allow me to freeze items in place so they can't be moved. If I throw it, I freeze him in place up here. That means I can't edit him, I can't grab him, I can't do anything, and I can't even edit it with a maker pen out. it'll tell me that it's frozen and that I need to unfreeze it first. So once I unfreeze it, it will now be accessible again to me. Very cool. Alright, last thing, final things here. One of the really important ones we're coming up, but it's not quite here yet. I'm gonna change him back to environmental and bring him back up here. It is worth noting that the environment and the decoration tools will just float. So if you have it as environmental or decorational, it will float and not move anywhere, as opposed to physical and sticky that just drop to the floor and have actual physics applied in the configure menu. So the make invention tool, you can see this little thing up here. I'm not sure if you can read it. It is not very important, so I'm not going to go into very much depth of it. I think I just took a screenshot. Anyways, the make invention tool allows you to select the things that you create. If you see up here, you can do all the stuff to make inventions. Inventions are very important, not for just creating things and sharing things with friends, but for saving the builds that you make for later. So if you make a basic chair, you can apply that in many different rooms because you created it. So it is your creation. You use as many times as you want to. That is very good. Next is the manipulate tool. It is basically the better sizing tool for Rec Room. If I have this cube right here and I click on this, you'll see a bunch of different tabs around it. That's really cool. But here's what we do to change some of these sizes. On the top, you see a little tab up here, pull it up, and you got a tall cube. Oops, sorry. Pull it back down, left, down, right, all these different things. This is what you'll be using the most for your shapes and sizes and floors and walls and ceilings and everything you could possibly ever imagine. You will be using the manipulate tool. I highly recommend you to get away from the size tool as much as you can. It creates a lot of confusion with textures and the different types of shapes and stuff. The shapes change as you scale them up more, and they make the physics a little bit better or worse, and everything gets worse with the scale tool. I will not recommend you use the scale tool ever. I will recommend you use manipulate for everything, to keep everything nice and simple, and it is what I'll be using in my tutorials. So, and the last thing, of course, is the delete tool. Delete tool is just going to get rid of our little block. And that is the end of that tutorial. So, that is an in-depth as I can get right now guide with all the tools and how to use them. I will come back with some actual starting on the buildings and stuff in a little bit, and down the road I'll do some more circuit stuff and explain the one tool I didn't really get to, which is the connect. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have the greatest of days, and I hope this guide helped for all my new builders out there and all my new Rec Room players that are coming to building. I really, really, really hope you stick around. Thank you and have a great day.